Generation loss. Have you ever heard that term? Generation loss. I wonder if you can guess what that is, just from its name, generation loss. Well, think back to the 80s and 90s when everybody was using copy machines. You remember those days? And fax machines and stuff like that. If you take an image, like say a drawing on a piece of paper, and you run that through a copy machine, that's a second generation. Now, if you take the copy and you put that in the copy machine and you run that through the copy machine, now you got a third generation. Take that copy out, you put it in the copy machine and you make a copy of it. Now you got a fourth generation. What is the phenomenon that happens the more you do this? Well, most of you will remember is that with each generation, each new generation of copy run through the copy machine, what you would end up with is a more blurry, less faithful image from the original, right? That's generation loss, and it's still happening today. How often have you seen a meme or something on Facebook or on social media, and it looks blurry, or it looks like it's been cropped too many times, and the resolution of the image looks kind of lousy? Well, what you're looking at is generation loss. Somebody created the meme and put it on the internet. Somebody copied it, put it on their social media. Somebody saw it on their social media, copied it, put it on their social media. As this process goes along, what has happened is that the quality of the meme, the resolution, has slowly been getting worse and worse until eventually you just end up with a big blob. So that's generation loss. If you're a God-fearing person, generation loss explains why people at the beginning of the Bible lived a whole lot longer than we do today. Yeah, that's generation loss. When you read about Methuselah living, 900 years or something like that. People today point to things like that and say, see there, that's just ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. That's not true. But if you're a person who has faith in the Bible and in God, then you understand why Methuselah lived 900 years old. Adam and Eve were just shortly before, so not that far removed from perfection. If you'll remember, Adam and Eve were created perfect. They would have lived forever had they not sinned. So then the people who were born shortly after Adam and Eve, they were much closer to that perfect state, and therefore they lived much, much longer. Thousands of years later, we get to us. All of this generation loss has been happening, and we, the strongest of us, reach 80 or 90 years old if we're fortunate. The really strong among us might live 120, but it's so rare that it's not something that you can really plan for in your own life, is it? How about authentic recovery? When one devotes himself or herself to truly ending the cycle of emotional disorders and emotional unhealth that permeate families. Well, the nice thing about authentic recovery and ending this cycle of unhealth and disorder in families is that generation loss can be brought to a screeching halt when we're talking about emotional issues. And so I've come up with a new term. For example, in my case, both sides of my extended family, terribly emotionally unhealthy. I grew up thinking it was completely normal. All those attitudes and all those ways of thinking and those types of relationships were completely normal. Type of behaviors, type of treatment towards others, totally normal. And then I escaped that. Saw all the ways that those attitudes are just terribly unhealthy. I gave up those attitudes in my own life, and I adopted brand new attitudes, healthy attitudes, that have completely changed my life and have helped me raise, until now, a daughter who is herself perfectly emotionally healthy. Everybody comments on how self-assured she is and how confident she is and how happy she seems to be and content, and how she doesn't seem to be operating on any type of stress or insecurity. What have I done to generation loss in the emotional sense? I brought it to a screeching halt, haven't I? So we need a new term, don't we? The new term that I've come up with is Healthy-Generation Fidelity. What do you think? Healthy-Generation Fidelity is what happens when you become the person to break that cycle in what has probably run through both sides of your family for generations. And now you've created something brand new from the brand new beginning. And I call that new, healthy generation fidelity. It doesn't suffer from generation loss. When you pass on healthy attitudes to your offspring and they grow up, who are they going to look for in a partner? Healthy partners, not unhealthy partners, because it's not going to feel comfortable to them. They're not going to be drawn to that. So they're going to end up with somebody else who is healthy. They're going to have children. How are they going to raise their children? With unhealthy attitudes or with healthy attitudes? Healthy attitudes. So it's in this way that healthy attitudes and also unhealthy attitudes get passed on through generations. Emotional disorders are all in attitude. Who else is going to tell you a truth like that that's so simple and so profound? All emotional unhealth and all emotional disorders are contained in attitudes. And it is attitudes that families pass on. That's why my grandfather had his emotional disorders. He passed that on to my mother. My mother passed it on to me. On my father's side of the family, the same thing. His father, emotionally unhealthy, passes on emotionally unhealthy attitudes to his father, or to my father. My father grows up, has his family, passes it on to me. So it can be brought to a screeching halt, but it takes some real determination, insight, and an appreciation for what matters the most. And it ain't family.